Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be working on replacing the fuel lines and the H-pop lines on our 7.3 Power Stroke with some homemade hardline. So if you want to watch me screw up some hardline tubing, stay tuned. All right, so some of the stuff I have to do this is laid out here. I got everything from Titan Fittings. They just seem to be the best as far as shipping and kind of cost of tubing, really. Yeah, this is 6-foot lengths of stainless steel tubing. We got 18, so 3 of these 18 feet. Should only need like 10, but I got more because I know that I'm going to make mistakes. So this is some of the fittings I got. 37-degree JIC fittings with orb fittings to fit in your in the oil rail on the truck. That's the same as these and these. Also, some of these are for the fuel pressure regulator, and then these are all your sleeve nuts and sleeve collars. And the keen-eyed of you might have noticed all of these bent tubes back here. So I gotta come clean, right? This fuel system's already done, but it's done in aluminum. And what had happened was I found the fuel pressure regulator kind of cheap, and I wanted to make the whole fuel system. And I was like, oh, we'll get aluminum, easier to bend, cheaper fittings, cheaper tubing, right? Really, it's just cheaper tubing. All the fittings were roughly the same price. But I was like, okay, that's cool. I was happy with it. It looks pretty good. I made a bunch of mistakes and had to redo a bunch of stuff, but I was looking in here, and if you recall from a previous video, I did not like these goofy H-pop lines when we were building the engine, which is why I replaced them and used the originals here and here. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, we could just make stainless steel H-pop lines. Like, they're rated to 3,500 PSI, depending on your wall thickness. I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna do that, no problem. And then I got carried away, and now we're making the whole fuel system out of stainless. Well, these are all carbon steel, stainless tubing, carbon steel fittings. But I would say if you want to avoid this mistake, maybe don't be so impulsive when you buy things and just wait it out like a day or two. Yeah, so I would say that buying the aluminum tubing is a pretty solid idea because of how easy it is to bend. You can get an idea of how you want to do it. You can almost just use it as mock-up too before you bend the steel tubing. And it was like $20 for 30 feet of it. Whereas this is $16 a stick for 6 feet. So I mean, you can see the cost savings right there alone. So like if I had done this all in stainless steel, I would be very upset. But I also wouldn't be doing it twice. So I think I'm gonna start out first working on the high pressure oil pump lines. I kind of already have an idea of how I want them to go. So I'll kind of show you that because I got impatient. I've been waiting on this tubing for like a few days. So I was bending up some aluminum tubing because I still have some left over. So I'll kind of show you what I got going on there. You can kind of see how this original fuel line or oil line comes off the H-pop. Just comes straight out into the line and comes over here. So what I'm gonna do is move this elbow. Well, I got a new elbow, but I'm gonna move this elbow here and then put a straight fitting here and here. And our crossover tube's gonna run here under the turbo. And that'll take care of that. And then this one's gonna come straight out, straight across, and into our 90-degree elbow there. All right, so you can see all of the old lines here, all the aluminum lines. I did originally make a mistake, and I bought a 90-degree elbow for the rear driver's side head, but it does not fit. You need 245, so, and you can kind of see why. It's a little bit higher. This just doesn't have like the height off the piece that you need. So I'll say for all the fuel coming out of the head, you'll need a straight one. And this is 1/8 MPT to a -6 JIC fitting, JIC fitting. And then these are 45s, same thread. And then you'll need female to male 1/8 inch NPT, same on both sides. And that gives you, and then that'll give you that guy right there. Boom, boom. So The only thing we're reusing on this is going to be the O-rings, which came with my fuel pressure regulator, and these barb fittings, because I could not find them on the website that I was getting all this stuff off. Plus, it's just fuel system. I'm sure that this aluminum pipe would have been just fine for any fuel we're going to run through this thing, which means these aluminum barb fittings should not be a problem. The only reason I swapped is because I'm anal, and we were doing the HPOP lines anyway, so I was like, we'll just do them all. So we'll see how that goes. If it does turn out bad, like I can't figure out how to bend this before I run out of, 18 feet of it, well, we have a backup system. So yeah, I'll kind of show you how the engine looks now and kind of the plan. So yeah, I mean, this is the engine, I guess. And then we're gonna turn this fitting so it's almost 90. I think it's like shot up a little bit. We can really do whatever we want. I'm gonna leave them loose because you can kind of just make the fittings fit, or the tubes fit how you want. You can kind of move the fittings if it's a little off. So we have some adjustability there, in our 90s at least. In the straight ones, is a little more, has to be dead on. All right, my rant is over. We are going to start mocking up this driver's side HPOP line. So let's get to that. I also like that these pieces come pre-straightened, because that other kit came in a big roll, 30-foot roll, and then I had to use like a straightener to straighten out the pipe, which got it pretty straight. Like, it wasn't too bad, but this is already straight, so that's nice. So here's my aluminum roll. We're gonna take a piece off of this first and pre-bend and kind of figure out where things need to go. I tried using welding wire when I was doing the aluminum ones, but I bought some really thick welding wire. As you can see here, I would suggest aluminum wire. It's much easier to bend. This stuff's kind of hard to bend, so I gave up on this pretty quickly. But you can use the welding wire to like figure out where your bends need to be and kind of like angles and stuff. And then you could just copy that and put it on, like make your tube out of it. So you could do that. It's not a bad idea. I just bought the wrong wire and it's really hard to bend. I'm not gonna go buy more wire because I don't even have a TIG welder, so there's no point. So this is the pipe straightener thing I got off Amazon. So you can see this was like 4 rounds, but so yeah, you just kind of stuff it in there, and then don't like bend this as you're going because it makes it really wavy. The most I do is like pull them apart a little bit, and then you just kind of feed it in there as best you can. And you run it back and forth a few times, and then it's not too bad. And you got a pretty straight line. I don't know if that's straight onto the camera, but there's like a few waves in it, but it's fine. So for this line over here, I think we need, I'm gonna cut off maybe a foot, so I have like a little bit extra in case we go over, but it doesn't look much longer than a foot. It's definitely not a foot long. So we're gonna cut off about a foot, and then we'll just see where we end up. And this is my pipe bender, or tube bender. It's not really a pipe bender. So it can go 180 degrees. You can unlock this handle here and move it out, so you can swing the tool even further when you're bending. So you can hit that 180, and then you can like lock it here, so it's just a solid 90. It'll still go to 180. It just kind of hits this handle a little bit, but it works. This is an okay tool. If I was gonna do it again, I'd spend the money on a rigid, the rigid tube bender, because it looks much better, much more sturdy. But this one's okay. The numbers are a little bit off. So you kind of start, you'll see when I get a tube in there, but let me show you what I do with this. So over here I got my vise, and then all I do is I chuck up the part that holds the tube here into my vise best I can, as straight as I can to get to start with here. And then I'll put this, this is just a digital angle finder I got from Harbor Freight, because they are known for their quality tools. And then I just kind of see where we're at, and I kind of, the vise is a little loose, so I can kind of figure out what we're doing here. Probably too much. pretty close, 0.2, 0. Dead on. So then we gotta do it this way. It looks clearly like it's off. And then I also have a level to help things out. So now we know that every bend we make, as long as we can line up our bends, will be straight, I guess is the right word for it. So yeah, that's how that works. Makes it easy for me. And then you can kind of see, like, once we get to a 90, we can unlock our tool, come back over, and we're able to bend to a solid 180. We can even go past 180, but you're probably not getting it off the bender if you do that. So yeah, not bad. I mean, I think the tool was 35, 40 bucks, something like that. Probably more than I should have spent, but the rigid one is like 100 and something, so I wasn't gonna. I was trying to save money by doing aluminum. Now we're doing it twice, so we're spending twice as much money. So you might as well not even cheap out on the tools, you know what I'm saying? All right, let's get to this. So you can put your sleeve in your sleeve nut, and then you're gonna screw it on to wherever you're bending from. So in our case, that's gonna be this guy here. And tighten it down a little bit. Boom, there we go. Everything's nice and tight. Sleeve nut's not moving. And now you can put it in your pipe. So slides right into the end of there. Maybe. There you go. And now you're gonna be able to like decide how your bends are gonna work, where they're gonna start, and all that jazz. You can do the same thing where we're aiming for here. So let's put one on here real quick. And then we get another piece of tube, put it in here, and you can kind of see what we're going for, right? So we know that this is lower than this when we bend it, and we know that we're gonna need less than a 90-degree angle, because 90 would be going this way. So you can kind of figure out what's going on here. And you can attempt to use this janky thing to try to figure it out, which works sometimes. If you like my way, do it my way. If you don't, and you have a better way, then do it that way. Most of the time I end up just kind of eyeballing this stuff too, so this will get close and then I'll just kind of bend it more. But the aluminum's more forgiving. So you can see we're about an 80-degree angle here on our protractor. So that's what I'm gonna shoot for. I'm gonna shoot for about an 80-degree, and I'm gonna mark this tube in the center of this tube so we know where our bend needs to be. All right, so I think you can kind of see what's going on here. We got our bend here. The direction of the bend on this doesn't really matter because we're straight. So this is the first bend, so nothing matters as far as that goes. But we know we need to bend it here, so I'm gonna line this up with our L here, or as close as I can get it to there, because we're limited on the amount of like stick out here. So we have to catch this hook. So wherever that lands us is pretty much where our bend has to be. So I'm gonna go as far out as I can. And then put this here, so we end up about the 45. So this will really be the middle of our bend. It'll be a little off, but it should work. All right, so now we're gonna go 80 degrees-ish. You can kind of see we're already past the 0. You probably can't see anything. So this tool kind of starts already past the 0 a little bit, like that is 0 degrees. So we're gonna go a little bit past 80 to try and compensate for that. Again, if you buy a nice bender, it probably won't be an issue for you. But here we go. So we got 45, 60, 75. So we're gonna go right between 75 and 90 should get us there. Right about there. Boom, there's our tube. Back to the engine. All right, so back on the engine, and you can kind of see, let me pull this out, where we're at here. So we're shooting a little high, which we kind of knew we would. So we can bend this a little bit more. There we go, that's looking a little better, which you can't even see. Oh yeah, you can see that. It's like lined up right on top of it. So that's looking good. So now I'm gonna cut this tube closer to where it needs to be, and we're kind of gonna get it in kind of where it needs to be, and then we'll figure out what kind of angles and stuff it needs. So I'm gonna mark that, cut it, I'll be right back. All right, so this won't thread because this angle is So this tube is going straight, and the fitting is going straight, and the tube is kind of angled into it. So you can kind of see. It's really hard to see, but you can see that that's straight and that is like coming at it like that. So we're gonna put a little bend in this to allow this to shoot down and then straight over. So we're gonna put a bend on this plane here. All right, so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. Maybe, I think I put like just under 15, which my bender's already over, so it's probably close to 10. And that's already looking way better. That thread's pretty good, if I do say so myself. So now you can kind of see what we did there. Let's see. So now you can kind of see that it runs more parallel with the head and then shoots up right where our mark is and then straight into that pump. So that's how you bend a line. It's that simple. Let me show you how to flare this aluminum. It's gonna be a little different with the aluminum versus the steel because the steel is way harder. I have not flared a steel line yet, so that's why I bought an extra stick. So let's pull this off, flare this, and see what it looks like. All right, so this is the flaring tool that I have. And it's like one of the only ones that I could find that did a 37 degree that was like decent quality. First thing you need to do is put your sleeve on with your nut, because if you don't put your sleeve on now, you won't be able to once you flare it. And then you're gonna need to deburr this in some way. I have this fancy, goofy looking tool. There are little like tube things. You can just be like, click, 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 a little reamer. But yeah, we'll deburr all this goofiness in here. And then we're just gonna stuff it in our corresponding hole, which for me is this one, 37 degrees. And make sure it's level at the top. Slide this over, it lines up. Just like so. And then you can see this. Maybe you can see this. How can you see this? Okay, so there's like a little thing. You see that moving down? And then it will flare your part or your tube. So I found with the aluminum, I don't let this cam over all the way. So you can see how it's like separating. So I go to where it's like that much of a gap, whatever that is. It's really scientific, I know. And then I back it off. So I don't let it cam over. For the aluminum, that is. Boom. I'll do this guy. And you have a flare. Not the most beautiful flare, because it's obviously flat on that side for some reason. But you have a flare nonetheless. And this isn't a tube we're using, so we're not too worried about it. But you can see that collar sleeve fits on there really nicely. And then our tube nut fits right over it. So if your tube nut doesn't fit over after you flare it, your flare is way too big and it won't work. So that's a good flare. So we'll put our other side on and another good flare. So sleeve fits on there nicely. This one's actually better than the first one. Fits on there nicely and then fits right over. So let's go see how this fits on the motor. Get our Sharpie out of here. And you basically just pull your collars back, your sleeves back, and kind of dry fit. And then you want to thread both sides before you cinch it down. Otherwise there's a chance it gets misaligned or whatever. And then thread them both down. Your wrenchy boy, and give it a little go here. So this one got a little tight, which means our bends are a little off, but that's okay. It's going. All right, that one's tight, and that one's tight. Boom. I don't know about you, but that looks freaking awesome. I love it. And I think it can only look better if it's made out of stainless. So good thing we spent all this time on this tube, but now we kind of know what bends we need to make, and we wasted a much cheaper piece of tube instead of that $16 6-foot tube there. We wasted $1, maybe pennies. I don't know. But yeah, so a tip I would have is to order extra tube nuts. So that when you're doing this and you're making sure the lines work, you have an extra set that you can use on the test tube. Because eventually you're gonna have to cut all these off and do it again. So I did. I think I ordered 2 or 3 of these extra just in case. Let's try to make this one out of stainless real quick and see what it looks like. All right, so I'm just gonna do like a really crude measuring system here. We're just gonna kind of figure out how much of this we need, and then I'll go plus 3 inches because I know my bender, the back piece that has the rollers is 3 inches long. So I'll go plus 3 inches from what I find here. So we'll start here on the edge, maybe a little further in. And that's where we end up. So I'm gonna cut out to maybe here. So on our tubing bender, we know the first bend needs to be about that 80 degrees. So we're just gonna do that first. We know it needs to happen, so we're gonna do it. We're gonna send it. And this is me live bending stainless for the first time, so we'll see how that goes. Oh wow, yeah, that's much harder. That's much more difficult. So let's see. About there. This has a lot more spring back too. You're right about that. We might have overshot it a little bit, but let's see. That looks good. All right, so now we're gonna figure out where we need to cut this guy. There we go. So now I'll give this a bend or a cut right there. All right, here we go. Now we'll just put our 15-degree bend in it, somewhere in here. All right, so this should fit. There we go. So yeah, let's see if this thing cams over. It's a little bit harder to bend, or a little bit harder to twist. But yeah, you'll see it here in a second. This thing will pop off. Not off, but there we go. So see how it's like not doing anything? And then it relocks, and then you can go the other way. You can get it back out. So that looks like a pretty good flare. It looks like we could have used a little bit more deburring here because it looks like it kind of got a weird line there. So I'm going to do this side a little bit more on the deburring, and then we'll try this side too. So again, we'll just kind of line them up, and then hand thread to start with. So I will say when you're making these, because of the flare, you should make them a tiny bit longer than you want them to be. So I don't know if that's gonna be a problem with me, because right now, you can kind of see we're like a tiny bit away, but I don't know if there's enough room in this line for this, or if this flare is even strong enough for it to pull it a little bit, but we'll find out when it leaks all over my driveway because I can't drive anywhere, but yeah. Oh yeah, it looks like it's pulling it. So I'd say in your application, account for that. Talking like a 1/16 of an inch maybe a little more. But it looks like this is working. There we go. That's your stainless line. That's pretty cool. Not gonna lie, that is super sick. So I love the way that turned out. I'm super excited that that actually worked. That was the first try. I mean, obviously, if you count the aluminum one we did before, it's not. It's like the second try, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I love how that looks. Like I said, there might be some issues with the tube having been too short and stretching it over, and maybe messing up the 37 degree on the H-pop, not the fitting, but the actual tube. Or it might be fine. I might have just pulled the tube over a little bit and called it good. But I'm going to keep that in mind for these next tubes. I'm going to make them just a touch longer, which will make them really hard to like fit up right, because it's going to be a little weird. But yeah, so I'm going to make these other two tubes, or I'm going to make the other side, and then I'll come back when I show you what I'm going to do for the crossover tube. All right, so there is the passenger side done now. It was pretty easy. It's not as flat as it looks, but I think we had a 60-degree bend here, about a 90-degree bend here, and I want to say this shoots up off of the like flat plane of this by 18 degrees, something like that. And then we just, once I got it all put down or bent up, I put it on, and then we tightened up these fittings just like we did with that. So that's how that looks. And I would say that looks pretty good. Now you can stop there, and your system will work just fine, exactly as it was intended to by Ford, or International, I guess. There is a company out there that makes a crossover tube, or what you call a crossover tube, and it connects both the left, or the driver's and passenger bank of the oil rail. And I guess that helps smooth out some of the inconsistencies there are with the injector using the oil and the pump catching back up. So instead you have a more spread out pressure between the heads, and then that is like kind of like a buffer. Not really. It makes sense in my mind. I can't convey it on camera. There's good pictures and stuff from people that actually sell this tube. But we are going to make one. So it goes here between these two. So I already got our fittings on here. And then I have the turbo temp installed. All these bolts are threaded a little bit, but the turbo can still shift a little. It's good enough for what we're doing. And the next thing we need to do is level the motor. So to do that, we have this guy. So if we take this guy, boom, motor level, baby. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is find out what the angle of this is, which, as you can see, is about 45 degrees, which is the same as this side. Should be the same. Yep, about 45 degrees. So it's not, but between the two, it makes 90, which means the motor's just not exactly level, but it's fine. So we know that to go straight across, we want 45 degrees. So here is a tube, very mangled because I've bent and unbent this one a few times, but I have it bent at a 45 degree angle, or pretty close to it. And you can see that will clearly not work because we're hitting the turbo. So if you put it in this side, it's exasperated. Oop. By that, see? So now you can see how far away off we are. So what we have to do is come up and shoot down, and then come across and then shoot back up. So to do that, we're gonna do the 45, plus we wanna go all the way down, so 90. So we're gonna do a 135 degree bend right here, and then hit it with another 90, a 90, and then a 135 right there. So I've already done that with this aluminum piece, so we kind of have an idea. This isn't perfect, so. All right, so here goes the first bend in the stainless for that crossover tube. Level it off there. And we're gonna give it a 135 degree bend. I really need to put more bolts in my vise. All right, that should be pretty close, right there. Okay. Make sure that's straight. Degree here. I really like pre-bending this in the aluminum to figure out what needs to be done. It makes, literally I'm just copying the tube at this point. Just kind of cheating, but whatever. We're here now. It's not really cheating if it just makes my life easy, I guess. There we go. Make sure that still looks good. All right, hit this with another 90. There we go. And hit it with a 135. And this is where you can see how this readjusting bar or handle, I guess, comes in handy here. So now I'm reset around the 90, and we're gonna go all the way to 135. Yep, that looks good right there. Then, boom. Now we just gotta trim this extra piece off, and should be doing good. So I'll just use this to mark it and then cut it. So first I'll just line up these flares and see what it looks like. Oh, yep, they fit pretty good. Threaded, threaded. Dang, all right. That worked, honestly, even better than expected. Holy crap. That's awesome. It looks a little goofy because I don't have, the bends aren't as tight as I want them to be, but I mean, it clears your turbo. It's gonna clear our plenum, not plenum, it's gonna clear a little white pipe off the front of the turbo here. And that is our H-pop lines complete. That's awesome. I can't tell you how excited I am that this like actually fit at least the crossover tube, because it had some goofy bends. I've made it a few times out of aluminum, and every time it comes out just a little goofy, didn't fit right. But this fit quite incredibly well, honestly. I did have to trim off a couple of these. I think I just did like one off each end, because when I first put it on, it was like hitting the edge of the fitting, but it was same on both sides, so I just had to drop it down. So you have to remove a little bit from each side. That's amazing. I don't know. Most of that was just eyeballing too. Like I figured out the angles, the 45, and that was it. After that, it was like kind of just eyeballing it, and then we just got it right. Pretty much first try with that aluminum piece, which again, I would suggest getting aluminum because theoretically you could, if you're not going to use it, you could unbend it and like use it a few times, which I've definitely done. But yeah, that looks amazing. I love it. So next up, we got to work on the fuel lines. So we're going to get our fuel pressure regulator remounted back here with all the steel fittings on it. And then I'm going to remove the turbo again and put in all the steel fittings into the holes in our head. So yeah, let's get to that. All right, so that's how she looks with our new lines on there. Yeah, worked just as well as I thought. This is sitting up a little higher than the aluminum one was. And I think that this tube is kind of shunted down a little bit, but it's okay. I think it's gonna work. It clears the pedestal. Like so. Let's see. Just like that. Over here, it's really tight, but she clears. Wait. You can't really tell, but it clears. Just barely. And then this doesn't hit either. We also got new plugs just because I was there and they were cheap. And then I put all those O-rings on here, the proper ones. And yeah, now we're just waiting on these fittings to come in because they're back ordered. All right, well there it is, all buttoned up. So you can see everything clears and looks good how it's supposed to. Turbo isn't touching your crossover tubes. Nothing's in the way. One other thing I forgot to mention, I mentioned this in the other video, which I'm not gonna edit because it was the one for the aluminum lines, but this steel hose used to kind of follow where this rubber hose is and end down here somewhere. And all I did with that is cut it off like right here. And then this rubber hose is just over that. So this is gonna get a clamp. There'll be a clamp on this barb. This is your return. So this will get a clamp and a 5/16 hose to this one, which will get a clamp. And then that ties up. And then that completes the whole system. So I'm sure there's some way you could probably flare the end of this one and then just make a fitting here, just like these. But I didn't really want to mess with that. This was a much easier option for me. So that's what I went with. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's the end of this video. This was a lot of fun. I don't know, there's something about bending these tubes that's just fantastic. I would say if you're gonna do it, just go ahead and get the steel stuff. I mean, it was priced comparably to what I paid for the aluminum stuff. But if you're scared of the steel, then go with aluminum, that's fine. I would definitely get aluminum line again to practice with, because it just made things a lot easier. You can take the aluminum line and you can bend it kind of where you need it to be after you do like a real bend on the bender, and then get it in there. You're like, oh man, that was wrong, and kind of tweak it how you need it to be, and then you can come back through with your stainless, and you can fix all those issues as you remake that line. So I think that helped a lot with making this look the way it looks. I mean, it turned out great. Time will tell. Like, obviously, I don't have a truck to put this in and no fuel pressure to like pressurize this, but time will tell if this leaks. Maybe my flares aren't good. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe the O-rings suck. So yeah, as time goes on, if some of that stuff happens or some of this stuff changes, I'll be sure to keep you guys updated, because I don't know, this is interesting. This is something I've kind of wanted to play around with for a long time. The stainless steel H-pop lines are kind of a new idea. I just kind of happened upon a picture on a forum that somebody had done it, and I was like, huh, I could definitely do that. So then that's where I decided to go from aluminum to stainless. Do it all twice, because I can't make up my mind. Tomorrow this will all be, I don't know, carbon fiber. There'll be carbon fiber tubes. I'm just kidding. I'm not doing that yet. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you guys got any questions or comments down below, and I will get back to you. And I'll see you guys in the next one.